You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGator14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hope y'all had a very nice Mother's Day. I'm Taylor Phillips. This is the Michigan Sports Truth Week in Review, episode 264 on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with the returning Ed Smith. How was your Mother's Day?
Quite well and quite fine, Taylor. Thank you so much for asking. I hope the same thing. I wish the same for you with your parents as well.
Thank you very much. So, got Tigers to recap, plus a little bit of Red Wings, Griffins, Pistons, a lot of Michigan State Spartans football news, as well as men's basketball and the Larry Nassar hearing and the Pistons logo. But we got to get going with the Tigers here.
That one is long gone.
So, the Tigers had Monday off, and then they went to Arizona, coming off losing 2 of 3 to Oakland. They beat the Diamondbacks 7-3. Francisco Rodriguez, prior to that game, was removed from the closer's role after blowing 2 saves in a row and 3rd and 4th blown saves on the year. Brad Ausmus finally lost his faith in Francisco Rodriguez. Let's touch on that first.
Yeah, it's something that had to happen. It had been building and building for quite a while, and it just came to a point where finally the dam had broken, and this was the breaking point. This was the point of no return, essentially. I think if Brad Ausmus had continued going on this path with Francisco Rodriguez as the closer, and he kept seeing more and more instances of blowing lead after blowing lead, there could have been a point where something had to have come to a head, and maybe Ausmus would have been canned midway through the season. So in Ausmus' mind, this is his own feeble and pathetic way of trying to ensure that he doesn't get fired until at least after the season.
Absolutely. So prior to that, shortly thereafter, Brad Ausmus named Justin Wilson the new closer, and Justin Wilson was tried out in the 9th inning. He pitched a scoreless 1-2-3 9th inning in a non-safe situation where Verlander, in a game where Verlander only gave up 3 runs, 7 hits, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts in 6 innings pitched and got the win. Justin Wilson didn't have any problems with the line.
No, and I think he didn't. It was granted, he did have a lot of warm-up, per se, constantly working the 8th inning and doing a consistently terrific job as well. So, of course, that probably more than anything else is what earned him this spot, and as well as the fact that K-Rod has now completely, entirely imploded. But if you look at the numbers, he's had a ERA of just over 1. He's got 26 strikeouts. He's got a whip of barely half of 1. 5'1". So for those that know, if the whip is, of course, I've said before, but for those that need a re-education, that's the cumulative combination of hits, walks allowed per inning pitched. So, the general consensus is if your whip number is at around or low or beneath 1.0, you've done a fairly consistent job in your role, whether it be starter, reliever, or closer. And with Wilson being a .51 whip so far this season, there was almost essentially a no-brainer of what he had to do. Yes, it's uncharted waters for him, but what else could you do? You don't have enough assets to try and trade for a dominant, flamethrower. Bruce Rondon is still working out some issues for some reason I don't know. Joe Jimenez, far too young to thrust him into that type of role.
Joe Jimenez is not even ready yet.
Exactly. So you have to deal with the hand you're dealt with. And the best option to fill is Justin Wilson. I got no problem with it.
Absolutely. And Justin Wilson has been lights out for most of the season, except for that one game against the Chicago White Sox where he gave up those 2 runs in the 10th inning. That was just a fluke. But he's been lights out. Yeah, especially for this month at least. He hasn't given up a single solitary run his whole entire outing for the month of May so far. He's only given up a total of 2 hits in all of his outings combined. He's recently gotten to 2 saves since moving into his new role as the closer. And it's what you need to expect. It's nice to see, even if it's temporary or whatever, some relative stability into knowing, hey, no matter what happens, this guy, he's going to more than often than not nail it down in the 9th inning to get us home. Yeah, absolutely.
But how many times have we been saying this, or been trying to find it now for, at least well over a decade, if not almost 20 years? I mean, you got to go way, way, way back to Todd Jones' first stint in Detroit, and then, factor in all the others that came after him, the Fernando Rodneys, the Jose Valverdes, the Joaquin Benoits, even though he was more dependable as an 8-inning setup guy, and so on and so forth. And Joe Nathan, what a bomb that turned out to be. And, of course, now with Francisco Rodriguez, goodness gracious, we just can't seem to find any luck.
Well, it's not luck. Francisco Rodriguez has been terrible. Blew 5 saves last year, but blow 4 saves in just over a little bit over a month. That's way worse than Joe Nathan.
Yeah, horrible. Especially when you have a guy whose fastball can't even reach 90 miles per hour anymore, and his best pitch is an 84 mile per hour changeup that sometimes hangs. Yeah, you're not going to get anything done with a guy like that trying to be brought on to protect a close lead.
Yeah,
it's just not going to work out that way.
And Francisco Rodriguez is almost 40. He's way old.
Yeah, so it's far different than a Trevor Hoffman or Mariano Rivera getting up there in age and still being consistent. Those are rarities. Those are diamonds in the rough. Whereas Rodriguez, he's definitely on the tailspin. It's if you want to find a similar companion or whatever, it would be Anibal Sanchez, convenient enough. There's also the bullpen with him because, for all intents and purposes, he cannot go long stretches of innings anymore. And it seems even now, with this new role, he just can't go anymore, period. But you're paying him all this damn money. What else can you do with him? Same thing. You can also apply that same meaning to Victor Martinez, by the way. But that's a different topic on another subject. But despite all that craziness, we're still relatively in this division race. Now, granted, the division is not that good this year. Cleveland has also been a bit of a underperform, if you want to call it that. Minnesota, I think, is going to come down to earth eventually. So with this division, let's not forget, by the way, this is a team throughout the first couple months of the season has had to deal with a significant loss of time due to injury for both Miguel Cabrera and JD Martinez. And yet here they are, just as of today, just only 2 games out of the first place in the division, if you can believe it or not.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Like Frank Vashner pointed out, it's the AL Comedy Central.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not that good.
mediocrity has been expected out of this division, has been seen out of this division, rather, I should say, for a number of years. It was also, conveniently enough, it allowed the Tigers to capitalize and win those division titles and, make deep playoff runs as a result. But hey, you play who's in your division, you play teams, you play who's on your schedule, see what you can do. And for the, like I said, the Tigers, with having the payroll advantage that they had, guys like Cabrera and Verlander, among others, it was able, like I said, able to take advantage of the weak division and win those division titles. Now you have teams like Kansas City in recent years, and of course last year and this year with Cleveland now catching up to you. That's just not going to be enough. You got to find new ways, new methods. And for all, some people thought the Tigers probably should have, sold, gone to complete fire sale mode, especially now with the death of Mike Ilitch. But knowing the pieces that are there, you live with what you're dealt with. And I think, like I said, even though the injuries to Cabrera and JD, they're still in it. They have a terrific offense. In my opinion, they have a very solid starting rotation, with the exception of Jordan Zimmerman. And for the most part, their bullpen is actually not that bad. It's just two big factors. A, you need a reliable closer to make sure things don't get too out of hand and cost you games in the ninth inning. And also, it's your fucking manager. How many times have we said this over now for the past couple of years that Brad Ausmus is just a horrible manager? I mean, if you want a growing indictment list, I mean, for goodness sakes, every single day, for the most part, he's still batting Victor Martinez fourth in the cleanup spot. Why in God's name would you bat a guy who, A, has no knees left, B, cannot run that fast anymore, and C, doesn't really have that much power anymore either? Why in the, for goodness sake, he's got, one home run in about 125 at-bats? Yeah, meanwhile, J.D. Martinez came back. He's already got 2 home runs in the past week. And yet you still want to
just last night.
Right. Especially last night.
Just now we're just 3 games in since the J.D. Martinez return, and J.D. Martinez has been on fire, except for the Sunday game. The Tigers only scored one run, but I'll bet J.D. Martinez did good.
Yeah, it's going to show, right? He's one of your guys when, eventually when Cabrera can't be as useful productive as he is, you got to rely on a guy like J.D. Martinez to help carry that torch. It's like essentially Tim Duncan to Kawhi Leonard, if you want to find a similar parallel. So you need a guy like him, but you got to give him more chances, more at-bats, more opportunities. And batting him behind Victor Martinez is not going to get that job done. Same thing with Justin Wilson. I mentioned last year, I think last year was an adjustment season for him. Now this year he's doing much better way earlier. It's going to pay dividends down the road. Yet Ausmus wants to bat him behind Victor. If you want to bat Upton fifth, fine. But he cannot bat behind Victor. Victor should be at the highest. He should be batting his 7th. And I'm being generous. If it were up to me, his ass would either be batting 9th or coming off the fucking bench as a pinch hitter.
Well, I want to point something out in terms of Anibal Sanchez, and I'll connect the dots to Victor Martinez right now when I get to him. I read one of Jeff Moss's tweets. Jeff Moss is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Detroit Sports Rag, and the Michigan Sports Truth always contributes to the DSR, whether fans like it or not. Jeff Moss tweeted just last night, there can be only one, that was Friday night in the 4-0 loss in Anaheim. There can be only one reason that Anibal is still on this roster. Chris Ilitch won't let Al Avila release him. No other explanation, quote unquote. And I'm gonna say the same thing about Chris Ilitch won't let Brad Ausmus hit Victor lower than 4th, anywhere lower than 4th. There's no other explanation. I'll tell you what Chris Ilitch needs to do: sell the Tigers and save your financial debt and stop having those tax issues. Sell it, get way more billions of dollars and just more millions of dollars, and just pay your taxes the easier way. Quit struggling with your tax issues and quit struggling with a manager that's just not competent enough
for this type of job, with this type of payroll and this type of roster.
It's time for a new owner.
And here's another thing. Before I return to Chris Ilitch, Moss brought out, wasn't Moss specifically, but I think he retweeted a comment from someone that reminded me a little bit of how the Red Wings may view, or how Zetterberg might feel of Blashill. That was reported in that article, about the Swedish mafia from Moss, whatever it was. And someone had commented, "What is the Venezuelan mafia? Got Brad scared or something?" I can't quote it exactly, but it was something to that effect. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's the Venezuelan issue. I would say it's the veteran issue, because Osnes is essentially the young guy in a room full of old veterans, and some may not give him the respect, may not respect him more so than they would respect his position. So they're probably going to have that chance to run over him a little bit in some cases. Whereas if you had a guy older, more veteran, more seasoned, i.e. a Jim Leland, for instance, that would command attention and command respect, clearly that would snap those guys to attention. So that's one factor to consider about. And back to the topic, subject of Ilitch, I'm starting to I'm starting to believe day by day that Ken Holland is not the only reason why that the Red Wings have hit rock bottom. I believe Chris Ilitch shares a lot of complicit guilt in that one, just like he does here with the Tigers. The reason why on God's green earth is Victor Martinez allowed to bat fourth, and why is Anibal Sanchez still on his roster? It's the whole loyalty thing. I'm sure that rubbed off on Holland, that hence the ridiculous, idiotic, dumb contracts and moves and trades and decisions that Holland has made since we lost Game 7, essentially since we lost Game 7 to the Pens in 2009 for the Cup. It's been downhill ever since. And you can kind of factor in the same thing for the Tigers. Their last big chance to really go for broke was 2013 against the Red Sox. They didn't do it. Leland leaves. Osnes is brought in. And it's been downhill ever since in that one. And I firmly believe Chris Ilitch deserves some part of blame. And if not complicity, if not being complicit, then involuntary ignorance would be another thing charge I would levy against him. But Chris Ilitch has definitely plays a big part in why the Tigers are in the current state as they are right now, and the same applies to the Red Wings, obviously.
Yeah, and here's the whole point. This is why the Tigers should not even make the playoffs. We don't want them to make the playoffs. In fact, we want them to have another losing season just so things can change. But the more the Tigers lose and the more the Red Wings lose altogether, the more money Chris Ilitch loses, and the more financial debt and tax issues he has. So he has no choice to sell the team. So this is our plan. The Tigers and Red Wings need to keep tanking to finally force Chris Ilitch to sell both the Tigers and Red Wings. Because
it's a tough sell. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, because there'll be a lot of fans that
it's supposed to be tough.
A lot of pride in that.
It's supposed to be tough. It's supposed to be tough.
Sometimes it doesn't really work that much. I mean, for God's sakes, look at the Sixers in the NBA. How's that worked out for them? You're not always going to get yourself, a Tim Duncan situation with the Spurs, or Houston taking to get Hakeem Olajuwon.
Right.
Sometimes it's not going to always work out in that fashion. You always have to find yourself a contingency plan of some sort, as whether it be trading away assets to land a big name, or the inverse, trading a big name to get plenty of assets. Since Chris Ilitch doesn't want to do either, I'm sure he's firmly content with the team in this case the Red Wings and the Tigers, essentially becoming the Titanic, where all you got to do now is just shovel the deck boards and start playing the violin because this shit is going down.
Yeah, that's the plan I was talking about. You see, it's time for Chris Ilitch to pay for his ultimate loyalty sin for the Tigers and the Red Wings. This whole thing's got to go down the drain. It's time for a cleaner slate. It's time for an owner and a general manager and head coaches and manager and a head coach and manager with a sense of urgency in totality. Wipe the slate clean and start being energetic. Wipe the slate clean and start comprehending a lot more. Wipe the slate clean and start paying and start doing way more attention to detail, for Christ's sake.
Basically, it's time to pay the bill for Chris Ilitch.
Yeah. It's time for it all to end, and it's time for a new beginning in the city of Detroit, in downtown Detroit. So, speaking of the Red Wings, Frank Vazner, over a week ago, posted an article in our group, the Michigan Sports Truth Facebook group, headlining Peter Mrazek staying with the Red Wings from the Hockey Writers, published and written by Tony Wolak. It mentions the Red Wings' chances of trading Jimmy Howard to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and then they have the quantitative analysis. They compared Peter Mrazek to Jimmy Howard with the easy basic metrics: the games played, the wins, the losses, the overtime losses, the shootout losses, goals against average, save percentage, and then the quantitative analysis. I believe with the metrics of angles, positioning, highlight factor, lateral movement, poise, puck handling, reaction time, rebound control, save selection, shot pass, recovery, and vision. Peter Mrazek does have the highlight factor, the lateral movement, the poise, the puck handling, reaction time, and shot pass recovery, while Jimmy Howard only has the rebound control, save selection, and vision. And then that next paragraph says, from a talent perspective, Mrazek is a better goalie. And then he picked up bad habits, and they broke it down. And I'm gonna message it to you right now again. And then the conclusion paragraph says Peter Mrazek is clearly the better goalie in Hockey Town. Frank Vazner wrote in text that the Red Wings can protect Peter Mrazek, and they should. And
I think it's safe to say. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You're fine. You're going.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think for the long term, that's probably the safer bet. Probably a bit too close to say right now because I thought Jimmy Howard had a very, very well year last season. Until he got hurt, obviously. That was the only thing that was derailing him. But other than that, he was, fairly consistent on my point of view, even more than what I saw from Mrazek. But long term, I do agree. So I think for Mrazek, for him to develop more on the traits, focus obviously on the skills and traits he has now, what you mentioned before with Howard of having the advantage in controlling rebounds and vision. That's definitely something that Mrazek hopefully needs to work on and will get done in the offseason. There was numerous times where he gave up plenty of goals due to rebounds. That reminds me of a lot of, for instance, Peter Luongo for San Jose. Solid goalie, but if there was one thing that always got him, it was giving up rebound chances. Mrazek, in my opinion, has to get much better at that and wants to take that next step into becoming a better goaltender or winning a top-tier goaltender, essentially. So long term, I would say yes. Even though, listen, I'm a self-admitted Jimmy Howard mark, but hey, I think the safe bet long term would be Mrazek. I'd have to agree with that.
Well, definitely. Yep, definitely right. It's a no-brainer. It's so easy to figure out. So, the Grand Rapids Griffins just finished off the Chicago Wolves. They won 6-3 in Van Andel Arena Monday at Game 4. Mitch Callahan had a hat trick, by the way. The Red Wings could have called him up had there been a different general manager instead of Ken Holland with his loyalty and shit. And then on a Saturday, just the Griffins got 4 days rest, and then they beat the Chicago Wolves 4-1 to win that series 4-1 at Allstate Arena. So they're going to play the San Jose Barracuda or San Diego. I'm not too familiar with this with the new San Diego team in the AHL. Let me pull that up real quick. I'm going to go to griffinshockey.com, and it looks like they're going to play the San Jose Barracuda anyway. So I'll after this podcast, I'm going to look up the San Diego team. But May 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, the Griffins are going to go to San Jose at I think the SAP Center, and play the San Jose Barracuda games 1 and 2 May 20th. That's on Saturday at 9, and then Sunday at 8, May 21st. Games 3 and 4. Let me get this over here. May 24th is Game 3 at Van Andel Arena at 7. That's on not until a Wednesday. Then on Friday, May 26th, Game 4 at Van Andel Arena at 7. Saturday at 7 at Van Andel Arena, Game 5 if necessary. Game 6 if necessary. Tuesday, May 30th at 10 at the Barracuda at SAP Center. Game 7, not even listed yet. But the winner of that game will go to the AHL, the 2017 AHL Calder Cup Finals. So the Griffins trying to win their second Calder Cup in franchise history and their first in 4 years. I remember the time when Jeff Hogan was the captain of the Grand Rapids Griffins, and Tomas Tatar, of all people, was on that roster when the Wings could have called him up for the Chicago Blackhawks series, when the Wings could have finished off the Blackhawks in 5 games.
Or at least 6 before they choked. Essentially,
yeah.
if you want to think about it, they were one of the early originators of the meme blowing a 3-1 lead before it became popular.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. It's been done before. But let's transition to college. Actually, we're going to transition real quick to the Pistons here.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
A headline from sportslogos.net read, "At long last, the Detroit Pistons' new logo officially leaks." And it looks like the old Pistons logo from the 80s, but it has this new modern Pistons logo type in it. If you can take, and I'm sure you took a look at it for yourself.
Yeah, I did. Visually, for those that may not know, think of the old school Bad Boys logo not the logo. It's not the Bad Boys logo, but the logo of the team from during the height of the Bad Boys era, before the move to the teal, the change of the colors, the teal and Hooper and all that shit. That's the premise of the logo, but the font is a more modern, sleek look. I don't mind it. I think it's very nice. Sometimes it's always great to go back to the roots. Essentially, I was obviously more than happy when they finally went back to the red, white, and blue. Back, I want to say, around 01, 02. So eventually, I think this was the right move to make, and I got no problem. It reminds me in some ways of, if you want to parallel it, what the Lions did with getting rid of the black outlining and just staying strictly with the blue and silver color scheme for their updated uniforms. So if you want to find a parallel for that, that's one way to go.
Yeah, and that's also old school. Speaking of which, so the Pistons last year were contemplating, that logo last year, and the Pistons denied that they released any kind of statement about an impending change in aesthetics. But now, this year, it's finally happened.
Yeah, and it's perfect timing too, with the team finally moving back to downtown, playing in Little Caesars Arena. I think it makes perfect sense to welcome in and ring in this new era, essentially, of Pistons basketball with this new modified logo change. So I got no problem with it.
100% fitting.
By the way, Taylor, before we move on to other basketball news, I don't know if you had reported on this or was going to anyway, but quick notes. It was revealed this week that former Pistons coach George Irvin passed away at the age of 69 due to a bout of cancer. Irvin, of course, like I mentioned before, not only did he coach the Pistons from trying to wait for this to load. Dang it. The Pistons, he was the interim. He coached in the late 90s, of course. Eventually returning for a brief stint as interim coach for 99 to 2000. He finished with a career coaching record of 100 and 190. He also coached the Indiana Pacers as an interim coach from 88 to 89. Again, George Irvin, former Pistons coach, passing away this week at the age of 69 due to a bout of cancer. So thoughts and condolences go out to his family at this time.
Yeah. Yeah, very sad news. Our prayers and condolences go out to his family, and happy Mother's Day to them as well.
Bittersweet, but well intended.
Yep. So, speaking of basketball, let's transition to college basketball here.
For three, yes, sir.
It's been reported that Michigan forward DJ Wilson, or is he a forward?
He's listed as a forward. That's how they do it nowadays with some college players. If you're not a true center, they'll list you as a forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, forward DJ Wilson has been reported will return to Michigan if he's not a first-round pick in the NBA draft. Now, Buck Gino on Twitter, at BuckGino III, III, pointed out that Wilson will get told he will be drafted in the first round by teams that want him available in the second round. So this may be an answer to one of our 5 questions at the end of the segment, at the end of the show. So
it's an interesting dilemma. It's an interesting dilemma because, yes, you're told by a team that most likely you won't get that guaranteed first-round contract, but you'll still be able to get a chance to play in the association no matter what. One second.
I was going to say it's now more possible that DJ Wilson will be drafted.
May return to school. It could go really either way. I would say it's a coin flip. I think DJ would prefer to obviously go in the first round, get that higher paycheck. But the temptation out there for him to still play in the NBA no matter what, earn a spot to play, get his dollars up, get his worth up, eventually cash out on a bigger contract a couple years down the line, or he could return to school, season up, show off more of his game, i.e. what Trey Burke did, and look what happened for him. He became National Player of the Year and a top 10 draft pick the next season, next year. So that could go either way. Now, here's another thing that really caught my attention. Because remember, DJ Wilson was not the only one to declare for the draft. Oh, I remember, by the way. Essentially, I remember when he declared Wilson had not hired an agent. It is my belief that he has still not hired one yet. And with the May 26th deadline approaching, if you have really serious intent of going to the NBA or entering the draft, wherever you have best hiring agents, this is underclassmen, obviously, not seniors. So I don't think Wilson, last I checked, Wilson has any agent or has talked to an agent or has considered signing an agent. So that bodes well in Michigan's favor as well. But also, while we're talking about DJ Wilson, let's talk about the other person who had declared with Wilson around the same time, Mo Wagner, the other forward, who, in my opinion, probably be closer to center. He is the taller of the two. He's he's legit 6'11" with a 7-foot wingspan. I'm just looking at some of the numbers that Wilson, Wagner, and Derek Walton, by the way, had posted at the combine. Even though Wagner is 6'11", Wilson actually had the longer wingspan and the longer standing reach. So that speaks well to Wilson's athleticism. Derek Walton, in my opinion, having fine measurements for a point guard his size and height. Seeing how he played in college, he can be a very good, versatile guard who can, A, rebound very well, and B, really, if, went over time, could potentially help you get you key baskets in key situations. May not be a bona fide starter, but could be a very good bench player. For example, I'm going to keep pointing to Spurs. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Patty Mills could be a great model, a good template for what Derek Walton could be, and then some. As for Wilson and Wagner, they're good talent, good potential. I just don't think personally and selfishly, I'll admit, that they're NBA ready quite yet. I think one more year of school would do well for them. Then they can both come out, go to the draft the next season when the draft probably won't be as loaded next year as it is this year, and also more seasoned experience, more chance to show their skills, get their value up more. That will help them out better long term as well.
So, I guess Michigan might actually get back DJ Wilson and Mo Wagner.
Well, we don't know yet because nothing's been officially reported or sourced whether, but so we can't get our hopes up too much yet.
No, that's actually up to the NBA draft. I was jumping the gun here. So speaking of Michigan,
Touchdown, Michigan!
Former football safety Jabril Peppers has denied that he used a diluted substance. That he has denied. The last I heard, Jabril Peppers denied using any type of drug. I mean, He actually tested positive, didn't he?
I'm thinking they're talking about how potentially it might have been some form of performance-enhancing drug or whatever. But I think the similar situation, like I said, I compared it before to Reuben Foster. One reason why Foster fell as he did in the first round was that diluted sample. Of course, not only would be his injury issues, but Peppers, as far as we know, has never tested positive for any type of, sample, drug, or whatever until now. So he's got a clean track record. I would like to see some hard evidence that will prove otherwise. And at the end, it probably really doesn't matter anyway because he still won in the first round. So at the end of the day, it's still good, still bully for him.
Yep. So we're going to transition to the Michigan State Spartans here.
Valentine for the win!
The Spartans have reinstated forward Ben Carter and granted him his 6th year of eligibility. How do you like that? The Spartans are going to get back Ben Carter and try him out one more time just to see if he doesn't injure himself this time. Ben Carter's a pretty darn good player. He was a transfer junior, and then he was a transfer, and then he got injured for the entire past season, and now they reinstated him. They want to give him another shot, and he wanted another shot, and
I think this was a fair and right decision by the NCAA because number one, and most importantly, he got injured in preseason. And of course, with him ending his season effectively, he didn't get a chance to really play that much. So in terms of determining that type of eligibility, I think that was a no-brainer there. Also, in a way, that this does help Michigan State. I'll allude to it a little bit later on in 5 questions. But I'll allude to it now and answer it more fully in 5 questions. Suffice it to say, having Ben Carter on the squad now for a 6th year gives MSU an impressive advantage in height and reach. I'll say that, to say the least.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and convert to the Larry Nassar hearing in terms of MSU gymnastics. We've been getting tweets from Matt Mancarini and Justin A. Hinckley. In case you missed it, MSU won't reopen the 2014 Title IX investigation that cleared the Nassar of sexual assault allegations. That's from Matt Mancarini. And then Justin Hinckley tweeted at Justin Hinckley, proposed budgets would cut $36 million in state worker issues. Mancarini, Nassar will be in court today for a key hearing. That was 3 days ago. Here's everything on written.
If I can give you I can help you out probably a little bit as much as I can with the updates. I do know that a recent, one of the alleged victims, her name is Rachel Den Hollander. She testified 2 days ago, however you want to, depending on when you're listening to this. She testified on May 12th, gave her testimony of what she went through, allegedly at the hands of Nassar. Some of it is quite disturbing to repeat on the air. You can look it up on Twitter and the internet and whatnot, find links to what she said and how she handled herself. Chilling stuff, I would say, to say the least. Could be a good indicator as to whether or not this case goes to trial. And also, in addition to that testimony from Ms. Den Hollander, the hearing that was on May 12th was the first of potentially 3 days of preliminary hearing in Ingham County. That was tweeted out first by Matt Mancarini on Twitter. He also mentioned that the other 2 dates, if needed, will be May 26th and June 23rd. The judge could make their decision before that point, or wait till all hearings are held before eventually making the final decision as to whether or not to go to trial. But as more counts pile up, and I believe more victims will step forward, alleged victims step forward to make their case, give their testimony, share their accounts, graphic detail if need be, to ensure that a case like this does go to trial, and in one way or another, justice gets served.
I can hardly wait. Larry Nassar is going to get his just due.
Yeah, it's only just. I mean, obviously, you always want to go the mantra, innocent until proven guilty, but, it's hard to deny the facts. And with the recent, when you hear about what happened in recent years with Penn State and, of course, Baylor University, among other schools, Temple, another example, it's quite disgusting and sleazy to see something like this being rampant on all of our college campuses, not just this area, everywhere, and some steps, some measures have got to be taken to quell this down, if not end it permanently. So, my best of luck to them and to the Crusaders who fight against this every day and whatnot, and I wish them the best of luck.
Me too. I feel horrible for those victims. I really do.
It's awful. Absolutely awful.
Yep. So, we're going to transition to Michigan State football.
Touchdown, MSU!
The Spartan football team gets in even more trouble. The Spartan football team gets in even more trouble as defensive end Demetrius Cooper is going to have a daily alcohol testing after violating a plea deal. He violated a plea deal on charges of assault and battery a little over a week ago, and Demetrius Cooper's gonna be tested for alcohol every day, and
it's essentially like if
you add this.
Go ahead,
You add that to the sexual assault investigation, including the four players and one member of the coaching staff. Defensive tackle Austin Robertson dismissed from the football team and then arraigned and held on a $250,000 bond. That's one player gone, 3 to go.
I mean, it's not even funny to or appropriate to probably make a mention of a 3-9 joke. It's far beyond that. This is just not just for the football program, but the school in general. It seems it's in a form of disarray right now. You only hope things are steered right. Now they've done, I think, in my opinion, as best as they could to weed out the root of the problems, but it's still a long way to go. And public perception-wise, it's going to be a while for the school, for the school to really rebound from this. So, tough times to be a Spartan fan. My sympathies go out to them because it's not easy, I'm sure. This is where you can say it ain't easy being green.
Yeah, that's true. I think that things need to change, and I think there's got to be a way for things to get better for the Spartan football team. Mark D'Antonio's got to have some accountability.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure without question he was vicariously and incredibly disappointed by the actions that have gone down under his watch and by his players. And obviously, as the head coach, there's some form of level of responsibility or accountability that comes into play here. I think D'Antonio will do his best to own up to it and to ensure that the remaining players on his team adheres to it as well, because if one fuck up from them, their ass is on the chopping block.
Yep, that's true. Let's let's get into some Lions news here real quick.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
The Lions have denied reports that defensive end Ziggy Ansah is 2 years older than his current age, than what he believes is age 27. I mean, I have no research on that, but what say you?
My input on this is that Jet Moss made a funny quib on Twitter saying that if that's the case, if he's already 29, probably the best chance for him to retire now. That's always seems to happen to some of the team's best players before they're 30.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think it's really a minute detail. This isn't like a 17-year-old kid or a 14-year-old kid being forced to play as lying or actually being told to lie about his age to play the league baseball. It's far different than that. Let me see if there's. Yeah, it's just really. Is it really that big of an issue? Is it a make or break issue for his career? No, not really. If it's something in terms of legal documentation, taxes, et cetera, yeah, you hope he gets that fixed out. But if it's not too much trouble where it could affect his football career, I really don't have a problem with that.
No. Plus, the Lions have signed like 18 undrafted free agents. Just to add on to here. So,
by the way, I skimmed through it on ESPN. Michael Rothstein, who covers the team for ESPN, had all listed. You can find it on there. You can find a whole list of names. But I will make a mention, not one of those players was either a Michigan player or a Michigan State player. So that was obviously quite disappointing. I can't remember the names at the moment, but I do know that two MSU players, I think it was R.J. Shelton and Deshaun Thomas, I believe, they went as UDFAs to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, in terms of other Michigan players, notable Michigan players that went undrafted this year, now, I think, wasn't Jake Butt selected by the Broncos, I believe?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so this tweet, I don't know what else this tweet might have wrong, but, drafted and undrafted. I'm trying to find the undrafted list because I see some well-known names.
By the way, the Lions have signed their first-round pick linebacker Jared Davis to a 1-year deal. So that's the other point. That's the other point I was going to mention here on this program, episode 264 on Spreaker, the Michigan Sports Truth. Taylor Phillips and Ed Smith.
Thanks for buying me time. I'm trying to find this loaded list of undrafted players from Michigan. I'm sure there's probably some names in there that are. 1 second. I think 6 players, I believe, signed as undrafted free agents.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the first page, right? First page of all news here.
Mm-hmm.
Lions signed 8 2017 NFL draft picks, including Jared Davis, and 14 undrafted rookie free agents. Jamal, here are the undrafted free agents. Alabama State tight end Brandon Barnes. He's 6'5", 225, 255 from Phoenix City, Alabama. Defensive end from San Diego State, Alex Barrett, 6'3", 255, Mesa, Arizona. Pittsburgh Panthers wide receiver Dontez Ford, 6'2", 210 from McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. 6'0", 230 Cincinnati running back Tyon Green from Sanford, Florida. 6'4", 330 Mississippi State defensive tackle Nick James from Long Beach, Mississippi. From Hawaii, offensive line at 6'5", 310, Leo Kalamategi from East Palo Alto, California. That's a damn long name. That's pretty tough to pronounce.
I think you had yourself pretty good on that one.
Yep, I kept fighting. Yep. From North Carolina, 6'1", 185 cornerback Desmond Lawrence from Charlotte, North Carolina. Homer Ric Flair. Woo! From Toledo, 6'8", 306 offensive tackle, that would be. Storm Norton from Toledo, Ohio, the Rockets. Stanford, 6'1", 190 wide receiver Michael Rector, Gig Harbor, Washington. From West Point, Georgia, Auburn 6'5", 310 defensive tackle Maurice Swain from Norwalk, Connecticut. UConn 6'1", 202 wide receiver Noel Thomas. Got 3 to go, I promise. From West Palm, Florida, Southern Utah, 5'11", 185 cornerback Josh Thornton. From McHenry, Illinois, Indiana State, 6'5", 200 tight end Robert Tonyan, Tonyan. Finally, last but not least, from Oxnard, California, UNLV, 6'6", 255 defensive end Jeremiah Thaloaga.
All right, good job.
Thaloaga.
By the way, thanks for buying me time on that, Taylor. I found a link. It was an MLive.com article by Matt Wenzel listing, in addition to the 11, mentioning not just the 11 Michigan players that were drafted. Here were at the time of his article, the 7 Michigan players that went undrafted. Here they are as follows in the teams that they signed with. Eric Magnuson, the offensive lineman, he signed with 49ers. Kyle Kalis, another offensive lineman, he signed with Washington. Defensive tackle Matt Godine, he signed with the Houston Texans, so he can at least play in the same state as his former teammates, Taco Charlton and Jordan Lewis, who of course went to the Cowboys in the draft. Safety DeMonte Thomas, he'll be joining back up with teammate Jake Butt because he'll be going to play for the Broncos. Again, on the topic, staying on subject with old Wolverines reuniting his teammates on new teams, Channing Stribling. He will be playing in Cleveland in the secondary, presumably with Terrell Peppers.
Miranda McCoy's Browns and Betty Cantley's Browns. Betty Cantley's one of the hosts of her shows on Blog Talk Radio. She tries to come on every time on Talk Show, and then runs into medical problems. My prayers and condolences go out to Betty Cantley and her family.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And if Lois Tenor is listening, my prayers and condolences to him too.
Absolutely.
He's my sports reporter on Talk Show. Every post game and in game chat on Talk Show. I was gonna have you meet him on the air for the first time until you had
mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I give my best of wishes and best of luck to him as well on his recovery. I do remember mentioning to Miranda on Twitter, her team, she's got my boy Jabril Peppers, take best care of him. So she said, they'll do their best. I was like, you damn betcha you will. Don't ruin him like you ruined David Terrell and Braylon Edwards.
They gotta take care of that drug test situation.
It'll be minute. I think nothing will come up with that.
We'll see. I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. By the way, to round out the rest of the undrafted free agents for Michigan, Kenny Allen, the punter, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, and running back Devion Smith. This name surprised me. I thought any team was going to take him. He went to Miami, so he'll be playing with the Dolphins. Now, that only left one name, apparently, that as of 9 p.m. on 30th, or as of April 30th, that hadn't signed with any team, best of my knowledge, would be offensive lineman Ben Braden. So if anyone can update me with that, more power to you. But still, that's quite impressive for Michigan, for not only Jim Harbaugh, but for the whole crew, coaching crew, and the team in general, to produce this number of NFL prospects. The program record alone, but with 11 draft picks in the draft, and now with these 7 additional undrafted free agent signings, really spoke to the level of depth, in my opinion, that obviously not just the team, not just the defense, but the team in general had. And definitely, and when you look back on it years from now, you could say, arguably one of the best teams to not win a title, whether it be conference or national. So it really brings up the interesting question of how well can Jim Harbaugh reload for his team to perform in 2018. So that's going to be something we pay attention to as we
2017
travel down the summer.
For
2017. 2017, 2018, that type of, how it bleeds over.
Yeah, that's 2 years.
Just something to pay attention. Yeah, just something to pay attention to for the rest of the summer.
Yep. So, I think we've covered all the bases on all the Michigan sports teams. So, you know what that means.
Absolutely.
It's time for 5 questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Absolutely. Taylor, go ahead and let him rip, my friend.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Should Justin Wilson still be the Tigers' closing pitcher regardless if K-Rod improves anyhow?
Yes, because he's your best option. K-Rod, in my opinion, is on his last legs. He does not have a fastball anymore. All he has is a middling changeup. He should not be in any circumstance be brought back on a close game situation, 9th inning. I will only bring him in if the situation called for it, or if you're up for it by a good number of runs. Because I really just can't. K-Rod has lost his trust with me. So there's that. And really, like I said, I mentioned it earlier, Rondon is not coming out so far. Jimenez is too young. You don't have the necessary assets to go out there and grab, for instance, trade for an Aroldis Chapman or something of that effect. And who's out there free agent wise you can sign. So Justin Wilson is your best option. Not a bad option in my opinion.
Right. And Aroldis Chapman, by the way, was part of the Cubs World Series championship team. Can you believe that?
That was the name I threw out there. Yeah, that was just a name I threw out there. Now, granted, he almost fucked up because he gave up the lead and allowed the game to be tied in Game 7.
Roger Davis,
but eventually,
former Tiger.
Former Tiger, how about that, of all people? But still, the team pulled out at the end. They got the ring. He got the win. Credited as the win for Game 7, I believe.
I guess so.
Or something to that effect. But still, that's just a name I threw out there. Who knows if he's gotten better or stay consistent or even digressed a little. Because when you throw have a fastball that hard, that fast, that diminishes you over time. Just as Joel Samaya, for God's sakes. That's my thoughts on that. I think Justin Wilson's their best option for now. Not a bad choice, in my opinion.
Definitely. No doubt about it.
Next question.
Question number 2. Should the Red Wings protect goaltender Peter Mrazek?
I say yes, because long-term he's going to be, in my opinion, your long-term choice at goaltender unless you somehow find a better option, whether it be a trade, like, you pull Dominic Hasek out of your ass again like you did in 2002. Other than that happening, yeah, I say you got to do whatever you can. Even if it means losing someone you didn't want to lose, like a young player that might be vulnerable. Reminds me a little bit of the Pistons when they won the title in '89. They could only protect so many players because the expansion draft coming up, and of course, they lost. They went 10 deep. They could only protect a certain number of players. They couldn't protect everybody. That led to them losing Rick Mahorn to the Timberwolves. So, or might have been the Dallas Mavericks, one of those two teams. So I could see something similar like that happening just based on the result of going all out just to protect Mrazek.
Definitely.
Next question.
Question number 3. How big was reinstating forward Ben Carter for the Michigan State Spartans men's basketball team?
Well, with Ben Carter coming back, not only do you have experience, not only have a player who knows what to do, you also have a guy, in addition to other players on your squad right now: Jaren Jackson, Gavin Schilling, Nick Ward, Xavier Tillman, Miles Bridges, Kenny Goins. All those players I mentioned are at least 6'6" or higher. The highest being 6'10", being Jackson. Schilling and Carter 6'9", Nick Ward and Tillman 6'8", Miles Bridges 6'7", Goins 6'6". It lets you know, wow, this MSU team's going to have a lot of height, a lot of reach, a lot of length. Could be a great beneficial help for them if they want to be more focused on defense in this upcoming season.
Next question.
Question number 4, and this is a fun one. Is the new Pistons logo for real this time? Just want to make sure.
I want to say yes, because that hat looked legit. If someone somehow found a way to Photoshop something like that on a hat, my hat's off to them. I think this is something that will eventually be confirmed. It reminds me a little bit of the Lions inadvertently kind of sort of tipping their hat with leaking the uniform. They're updating uniforms, whether it be an email or whatever, before eventually the reveal happened. So I could definitely see something like this happening where, press release or modeling or whatever, the Pistons will eventually, on their own, announce the new modified logo to signal their return to downtown Detroit.
Next question.
And finally, question number 5. Is Michigan Wolverines men's basketball forward DJ Wilson staying in school or becoming a pick in the 2017 NBA draft?
I think the better way to frame that question is kind of a more likely question. Which is more likely? DJ Wilson which is more likely? DJ Wilson returns to school or is a first-round pick? Because I think, right, he has potential to be selected in the draft. I don't know for sure it's going to be a first-round pick because, number one, I mentioned this draft is loaded with lots of talent in multiple positions. Reminds me a lot of this year's NFL draft. So it would not surprise me in the least if Wilson were to stay in. He'd probably, be an early second-round steal, maybe mid-round. I hate to see him drop all the way down to the low 50s, and God forbid, Mr. Relevant pick at number 60. But hey, it's not always a bad thing. Look at Isaiah Thomas he was selected as the very last pick by the Sacramento Kings. Now look at him. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA with the Boston Celtics. He's only 5'6". Can you believe that? So that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world for DJ Wilson. But if you were to tell him, again, he's being told himself, he's even alluded to it apparently, right, if he's not a consensus first-round pick, he'll go back to school. Same thing with Mo Wagner. So if you were to ask me which is more likely, DJ Wilson being a first-round pick or going back to school, I would say probably not by a large margin, but if you want to go on the more likely train, DJ goes back to school for one more year. And if you want to throw in as a bonus, add in Mo Wagner as well. And if that happens, Michigan has, in my opinion, a solid front court return for them to help them out with balance out in a way the loss of Derek Walton for the upcoming season.
Absolutely. So that's our 5 questions segment. For all the listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That's going to do it for episode 264 of the Michigan Sports Truth Week in Review on Spreaker. Ed Smith, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. Tigers have Monday off again, and then they return home. We'll see what happens with them going forward with Ian Kinsler and J.D. Martinez coming back. Also want to report outfielder John Adducci has been put on the 10-day disabled list with an oblique strain. That's Ryan Schuerling heard that from Mario and Pemba on Fox Sports Detroit. That happened in batting practice.
That's what you call a case of bad luck.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have no argument against that. I'm afraid. So the Tigers still have JD Martinez. So I got a bonus question. Regardless which position in the outfield John Adduci plays, when John Adduci returns to the Tigers lineup, could they replace Tyler Collins with John Adduci and put him in center field with JD Martinez
it depends.
and Justin Upton?
It depends. It's called, if Tyler Collins doesn't get his shit in gear and start hitting the ball, he's currently doing his best impersonation of Johnny Damon in the 2004 ALCS, for the most part, up until Game 7. So essentially, he's got to be Damon Game 7 04 ALCS for this time period that Adduci is out with injury. Otherwise, his ass will be replaced when Adduci gets back. That's my thought on that.
Johnny Damon's another former Tiger. He played in 2010, by the way, if you fans recall.
Well past his prime, but still consistent.
Yeah, the Illiches, when they had Dombrowski and when they still have Avila, they still sign washed-up veterans who are already over the hill, just like Illich
just
and
like
Ken
the Red
Holland.
Wings.
The Illiches have got to go, period. We've had enough of the Illiches.
It's time to move on.
Their old veteran signing and their loyalty, fuck them. So, with that being said, that does wrap up episode 264. Ed, I hope you had a happy Mother's Day. So did I. I worked 13 hours at Ruby Tuesday in Cadillac, and we were still able to fit this podcast in, and now we can get some rest, much needed rest.
Absolutely, Taylor. Thanks again for the wishes. Same to you as well.
Thanks,
Have a great night. See you next week.
Yep. Talk to you next week. So, before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this podcast, this episode too, and post it on social media. Have their friends share that as well, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET at Sports Radio Dead, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section, or email its owner, Roger Castillo, at rajcast81@gmail.com. Also, like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcast available on iTunes and Podbean. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. And follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313. And like the Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join its Facebook group with the same name. We'll talk to you next week on episode 265. Thanks very much for listening. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.